Haven't lost a second of sleep over the bastards, and would do it again in a heartbeat.
Serious. Redditors who killed someone, what happened?
I was walking to work at 3 AM when this guy staggered out of the woods with a knife and his belt undone. Before I could react, he tackled me to the ground. Broke 3 of my ribs. I kind of kneed him in the elbow and he dropped the knife and tried to choke him long enough to render him unconscious. And I did. He never woke up. It still bothers me. I was arrested and questioned in the hospital. Uncuffed the following morning after the police obtained security camera footage. I've been asked before how I managed to hold the choke long enough to kill him. I don't know. I may have crushed his windpipe. I have no concept of how long the choke, or even the whole situation lasted. My husband and I only had one car at the time, and I had to ride with him to work one morning around 4 AM, so I could drive back home. It was raining, and the road wasn't lit. We were just chatting with one another, and I was reaching for the CD album for some tunes. I looked up for a moment and thought I saw what looked like a crumpled up blanket or trash bag or something in the road, but I couldn't make it out at all. My husband was driving and couldn't see it at all. Neither of us got to see for sure what it was until the headlights got close enough, and by then it was too late to react. It was a man, curled up in a ball in the middle of the road, dressed completely in black clothing. I remember crying out just a half second before we struck him and went over him. It hasn't even dawned on my husband what had just happened, and I was screaming and crying in horror. My husband was also very distraught and was shaking. I told him he has to call 911 and get help, so he did. He got out of the car and went over to check on the man and see if he was responsive at all. Nothing. The ambulance and cops came. They asked us a bunch of questions and the whole routine. The news crews came out to film everything. That man died on the way to the hospital. This haunted me for over a year after it happened. A month or so later we found out that the man had abandoned his truck at a nearby gas station and walked away. He wasn't from the area either. We learned that 2 of his friends came down here to talk to him and tried to get him to go back home with them and get back into rehab, but he had refused and said he wasn't coming back. There was a lot of alcohol and meth in his system. I don't know what that does to a person when those things are mixed, but somehow this guy found his way into the middle of a poorly lit city street and curled himself up. I'll never know why he was there. I'm still afraid of driving on rainy nights. I don't think I slept well at all for a while afterwards. I have to travel that same road to work, and now I always think about it when I pass that spot on the road. A friend of mine was outside of a bar waiting for a ride home. It wasn't that late at night and he texted me. I drove about 10 minutes to go get him. When I arrived, there were 3 other guys surrounding him, obviously wanting trouble. I ran and tackled one of the guys to the floor. I was completely focused on this guy because he was literally face to face with my friend. We start hitting each other and a bystander helped with the other 2 men. I managed to stumble back on my feet and kicked the guy in the face. He hit his head against the wall of the building and I knew it wasn't a good sound. With my adrenaline rushing, I looked over and the other 2 men were running away. I was the one to call the cops and report everything. I didn't kill someone, but my aunt and her husband did. They were camping and asleep in their tent. In the middle of the night, some strange man slipped into the tent and got on top of her. She woke up and started screaming, so her husband grabbed his gun and shot the guy. They both immediately ran out and went to tell the man running the campground what had happened. By the time police got there and checked the tent, he was dead. Apparently the guy they killed had been arrested exactly a year prior for breaking into a tent full of kids at some other campground. Guy tried to carjack me when I was a young 21 years old Marine out in North Carolina. As soon as I saw the knife come in the window, I pulled my pistol out of my holster and shot him in the face. He fell out of the window he tried to crawl into. Lucky for me, police were behind my truck like 3 cars back and saw the dude try to get in my window. When I was 17 I was home alone because my mom was in the hospital and my dad was in another country for business. I was up in my room and I heard the door open and I know that nobody was coming. So I grabbed my dad's handgun from the safe. He told me the code and told me to only get the gun in an emergency. I carefully moved downstairs and I see a guy with a big knife. He ran at me and stabbed me in the leg before I had a chance to react. When he stabbed me I kicked him and then put the full mag into this guy and he died on the spot. I called 911 and I was taken to the ER for the knife. It was ruled self-defense and to be honest I don't feel bad. I told my therapist and he helped me through the shock, but that was it. I've had to twice. I worked at a gas station convenience store that my family owned in a state with extremely relaxed gun laws, so I always carry a gun. 2 separate times a man has tried to rob the store, once at knife point, dumb as hell, and once with a gun, and 2 times a man has entered the store alive and left dead. I think they assumed I'd just hand the money over since most convenience store employees don't get paid enough to care, but like I said it was the family business, so I cared a lot. I knew we had cameras in the store, so it was an extremely easy decision, as the police had concrete evidence I was defending myself and the store, so there was no risk of prison, which is the scariest part of self-defense in my opinion. Haven't lost a second of sleep over the bastards and would do it again in a heartbeat. I was walking to my car at around 2 AM after a late night drive because I couldn't sleep and I stopped to get some food. I'm getting out my keys when a teenager no older than 15 approaches me with a gun. He pulls it out of his hoodie and demands my car keys, wallet, and anything of value. I start to reach into my back pocket and I keep my concealed carry Glock 17 on my belt loop right above my back pocket. I pull it out and shoot the kid twice in the chest. He drops to the ground and lets out a weird sort of sighing sound. I used to be a cop and know instantly that I've just killed this kid. Everything after that is kind of a blur. All I really remember is the police, ambulance, and fire trucks arriving and the police questioning me. They confiscate my gun and about a week later I get it back. To this day I can't help but think, where in this kid's life did something happen to the point where he's committing armed robbery at 14? I later found out his age and that he didn't have parents and was an orphan who ran away and stole a gun. The thing that bothers me the most though is that he was dealt a shit hand in life and was most likely suicidal. The look in his eyes most likely told me that he didn't really want my stuff and that he just wanted to end it all. Why he didn't shoot himself confuses me. Years ago, me and 3 friends went to rob some guy for Xanax. We met up with him in an empty parking lot near a taco cabana. With guns drawn, me and one other friend ran to the car. My friend pistol whipped the guy, and as soon as this happened he sped off. I jumped back in the driver's seat, he jumps in the seat behind me. His sister sitting next to him in the back, and my other friend in passenger. We chased the dealer about 10 miles up the road, running red lights and stop signs on and off the highway, until I took the wrong turn and struck a tree head on going about 70 miles per hour. I was severely injured, as was the passenger. My friend sitting behind me died on impact. The only reason I made it out alive was because his sister was still conscious. Ultimately, I was charged with murder. I paid a lawyer $15,000 to defend me and $5,000 to post my bond. I fought the case for about a year and was sentenced to 10 years in the Texas Department of Corrections on the charge of manslaughter. The haunting images of that night still plague my mind. But I've become so entirely numb and desensitized that at times I can almost laugh about the situation. Life is wild.